Hello everybody, this is Ironhide X, and today I'm going to be doing a guide on all of the premium ships in World of Warships. My personal picks, my favorite ones, which ones are the strongest, which ones earn you the most money, which ones I think you should avoid, and which ones I think are definitely worth a buy. That being said, let's get it started, and here we go. Alright, so premium ships. I'm going to try to break these down into several different categories. Just sheer fun factor, credit making potential, commander training, and then my overall best picks for type and tier. So that's saying let's get started. So first one we're going to cover, guys, is just pure credit making potential on premium ships. Now, without a doubt, TLDR is the best premium ship in the game for making credits is without a doubt the Tier 9 United States battleship, the Missouri. Nothing else comes close. The Missouri is the #1 ship in the game for just pure credit making. However, that's also the most expensive premium ship in the game. While technically you can get it for only 1 credit or whatever it costs, I think it's 1 credit if you have 750,000. I think it's 750,000. Let's check. Let's double check. Yeah, 750,000 free XP is needed. Or if you don't have that much, like I don't, it ends up costing you about $100, give or take. So it's about $100, literally twice the cost of any other premium ship in the game. But again, if if money's not an object for you and you're just looking for the ship that can make you the absolute most credits, Missouri, hands down. Now, assuming you don't want to spend $100 for premium, what's next? So each premium ship in the game, it's actually not by tier, each one has its own special little credit coefficient. Some are better than others, but generally speaking, the higher the tier, the better the credit coefficient on the ship, and also the more damage you can generally do. So usually higher tier ships, higher tier premiums do make more money, more credits than lower tiers. Also, some of these ships are not true premiums, like these ARP ships and like the Shinonome and Arkansas Beta. Those, while they are premiums, they have just standard ship credit coefficients, so they don't really make any extra money. So other than the Missouri, my #1 ships when I want to make money is I grind the Tirpitz. Tier 8 German battleship Tirpitz, especially with the new buffs to its secondaries. That's my #1 ship for making money, followed very closely by the Kutuzov. These are my two ships I grind when I just need to make credits as efficiently and as fast as I possibly can. Now, as far as just raw fun factor, how fun they are to play, there's a couple of ones that are a lot of fun. So the Kutuzov, again, not only is it one of the best credit making premiums in the game, it's also a lot of fun to play. You have a Tier 8 cruiser that has a 19-kilometer gun range, 19.1, with extremely fast shell flight times. It's a lot of fun to play, and it has smoke. So that's probably my favorite premium to play just for fun factor. The Tirpitz again could be a lot of fun, but to be honest, every premium I have they're pretty dang fun to play. There's no doubt about it. And so as far as pure fun factor, I'd go Kutuzov, but again, they're all really fun. So I wouldn't really make that your #1 buying guide because they're all a lot of fun. Now let's go over another huge aspect when you're buying premium ships is the commander training potential of the ships. Now, there's a couple of really important things. So let's say I'm going to use the Kutuzov here for an example, and I want to use him to train up a commander. It's important to note that unlike in tanks where you have to put it in the same type of tank, in warships, it just has to be the same nation. So you can put a Russian destroyer captain in the Kutuzov, a cruiser captain, doesn't matter. As long as it's a Russian captain, he can go in here. The one downside of that is, let's say you want to work on grinding up your Russian DD captain. He may not have the captain skills that work really well with the Kutuzov. So generally I try to stick to the same type, but Russian ships in general are real special in the fact that a lot of the skills you use for Russian DDs you will also use for the Russian cruisers. So they're real special in that fact. But for like let's say Japanese ships, let's say the Otago, and again I'm sorry about pronunciation, I've heard it said a bunch of different ways. I know I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but this is how the people that I talk to, this is how everybody says the name of the ships. So it's the Otago. But for, let's say, the Otago, the skills for this one don't really work as well, let's say, with my Yamato captain. They don't really sync up as well, or for, let's say, my Shimikaze. So if I want to put that commander in the Otago, it'll work just fine, but again, some of your commander skills won't really sync up too well, and you're not going to want to retrain it because you just want to go back and forth. Now, one of the keys for commander training is you want to get these daily doubles. So let's say a German captain, for instance. Let's say my Kurfürst captain. I want to get him trained up. So you want to run him in as many premium ships that you have the daily doubles on. So you can run the Kurfürst captain in the Prince Eugen, in the Tirpitz, in the Scharnhorst, etc., etc. Now, while commander training is really important whenever you're picking out a premium ship to buy, I wouldn't necessarily put that at the top. For me, my most important thing whenever I play a premium ship is it good and will it make a lot of money? Now, once you reach a certain point, you can actually use, let's say, a German premium to train up a, let's say, Japanese or an American captain. Now, while you can't, how that works is, once you have a 19-point commander, like this is my Kurfürst commander, he's a 19-pointer, and I want to grind the Tirpitz, but let's say I need EXP for, let's say my Neptune, and see, he's only 18 points. Now, one of the ways you can actually use this German captain to train up this guy, the Neptune, the British captain, is that once you do have a 19-point commander, any EXP that commander earns after he has 19 points goes into a pool. So if you look over here where it says Elite Commander XP, I can use that on any ship I want. So it doesn't matter what nation or anything like that. So that's one of the ways you can get around the commander training thing. And then also it's more efficient to run premiums with a 19-point commander once you do have one, and I know it can take a long time because the exchange rate, for the EXP you earn in battle is a straight 1-for-1. You literally lose nothing. So you go into a battle with a 19-point commander, your ship's going to do better because you have a super high tier commander, and then all the experience you would have earned on that captain, you can freely trade to any ship. It doesn't cost any gold or anything like that. So I can take, and it's also in a pool, so you can, if you have multiple 19-point commanders, it all goes into the same pool. So you can run multiple nations. Let's say I have a Russian 19-point commander and a German 19-point commander. I can get all the doubles for both of those nations for all the premium ships, and then I could sink all that elite commander XP into a single captain. Let's say if I wanted to train up a British captain. So that's one of the ways you can get around commander training with specific nations, is that you don't necessarily have to have the same nation as long as you do have a 19-point commander. Now, for a lot of people, I know they won't have that. That's just one thing to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about purchasing a premium ship. That commander training and EXP, while it is a big deal, once you get to a certain level, it's not really going to matter because you can use that 19-point elite XP conversion. Now, as far as the ships themselves, again, higher tier generally makes more money, but certain ships have special little camos that can further help you. Let's say the Prince Eugen here, for instance. You go to exterior and click on camouflage. His camouflage actually gives him 50% XP earned in battle, but also, if you look there, an additional 50% commander XP earned in battle. So different ships like that have different little things. The Tirpitz one also has another special camo where he earns 50% XP and an additional 100% free XP. Though I believe this one here you have to get through a campaign. I am not 100%. I think I got it through a campaign. So different little ships like that have different little camos, but generally speaking, most premium ships are just going to have the standard camo that just gives you plus 50% XP, and the higher the tier, the higher that is. So like if you go down to a tier 5, I believe it's 30%. Let's look at the Marblehead. Yeah, so like a tier 5 has 30% gain. But again, the actual credit making potential is on a per ship basis. They have credit coefficients. So now I'm going to cover a per tier basis. So if I just wanted to purchase a certain tier ship, what my personal picks would be for each tier. Now for tier 8, I have all the tier 8 premiums except the Alabama. I do not own the Alabama, but I have played the Alabama. So while you may not see it here, I have played it. Now, if I was going to buy a tier 8 premium, again, my top 2 picks would be obviously the Tirpitz and the Kutuzov. My third choice would be the Otago. I feel these 3 are by far, by a large amount, the best, the most effective, the highest credit making tier 8 premiums in the game. And the Prince Eugen and the Loyang, while they are fun ships and they're good and there's nothing wrong with them, and if you're a fan of those nations or anything, by all means get them, but they are just lacking that certain something. The Kutuzov has the high velocity, super long range guns and smoke. The Otago has heal, which is a huge deal. Very stealthy ship, has great torpedoes and devastating HE rounds. The Otago is a really good ship. It's an old premium, but it's still one of the best there is. And then, of course, the Tirpitz. What's not to love about it? Some of the tankiest armor in the entire game. Lots of hit points, fast, handles well, good guns. And now that they buffed the secondaries on it, it actually has 10.6 kilometer secondaries. This is by far not only the best tier 8 premium, the premium battleship in the game. This is the best tier 8 battleship, period. This thing would beat out, in my opinion, the Otago, the Bismarck, North Carolina. This thing, it can duel out with them at long range. The Bismarck used to have a real advantage in that it had much better secondaries, but since the change and the buff to the Tirpitz secondaries, this thing actually has better secondaries than the Bismarck. They have better firing angles. So it's as tough as a Bismarck, but then you also additionally have torpedoes. So you have torpedoes, amazing secondaries, some of the best armor in the game. I really can't say enough about the Tirpitz. If you're a newer player especially, battleship premiums are probably the way to go. Right now in the game, battleships are extremely strong. They're very forgiving. You can make mistakes and you're not going to get one shot. So if you're a newer player, this is my #1 recommended premium ship in the game. Now for tier 7, this is a more versatile tier. There's some very good premiums, and there are some premiums at tier 7 that I would flat out just not recommend you getting. Now, unlike tier 8, there is quite a few tier 7 premiums that I do not own, but again, I have played all of them. I've played them and played against them, so I can give you a pretty good review of what's what on tier 7. As far as what I feel the best tier 7 premium is, I mean, without a doubt, Scharnhorst is the best tier 7 premium in the game. Again, these are just my opinions. The Belfast is also very, very good. Tier 7 cruiser, it has smoke. It can shoot HE and AP. It's got the amazing 8.7 kilometer detection range on a cruiser, which is just nuts. But again, if you're a newer player, the Scharnhorst really is the way to go. It can carry teams more easily than the Belfast. You can make mistakes. In the Belfast, you get caught broadside, just one hit from a battleship, and that can send you back to port. Some of the premiums at Tier 7 I do not have that I would also really recommend would be the Leningrad. The Tier 7 Russian destroyer is probably the best destroyer premium in the game. So if you're looking for a destroyer, that is flat out, in my opinion, the best destroyer premium in the game. But as far as just Tier 7s go, it's a really strong Tier 7. You can't go wrong with that one. As far as the carrier premiums go, the Tier 7 carrier premiums, you have the Kaga, and then you also have the Saipan. They're both Tier 7, sorry, carriers. Now, in general, I don't recommend carriers. They don't tend to make as much money as regular premium ships do. But if you just want a Tier 7 premium carrier, or just carrier in general, I know there's a lot of hype right now for the Kaga that just came out, but honestly, guys, the Saipan is the superior carrier without a doubt. A Saipan will wreck a Kaga. This is by far the best premium carrier in the game. It has Tier 9 planes. It's simple as that. The Kaga has Tier 6 planes. The Saipan can have 4 fighter groups and 2 torp squads. I mean, it's a very, very effective carrier. But on top of that, it can do the one thing no other carrier in the game can do. It can strafe out of dogfights. It can strafe out of dogfights without losing a plane. It's the only carrier in the game that can do that. So whenever your planes are tied up with another carrier, and you feel like you're going to lose that, or maybe you want to go stop some bombers or some torp planes, you can just strafe out. It costs you nothing. With the Kaga or any other carrier, whenever they try to strafe out of a dogfight, they end up losing a plane. So for carriers, Tier 7, definitely get the Saipan if you have to have a Tier 7 premium carrier. But otherwise, I generally wouldn't recommend CVs too much, because they don't really make as much money from a money perspective. Fun factor though, and just to get more experience in carriers, Saipan's definitely the way to go. Now another Tier 7 premium that I do not own is the Hood. Now the Hood is a good ship, don't get me wrong. There's no premium in the game, or very few, that I would flat out say are just not very good at all and I would not buy them. The Hood is a good ship, there's no doubt about it, but the Scharnhorst, in my opinion, is the better ship. It's tougher, it's got faster firing guns. While they are smaller and they're harder to deal with battleships, it has good secondaries, it has torpedoes, and it's dang near impossible to citadel. So between the Hood and the Scharnhorst definitely wins. I also do not own the Bliswicka. While the Bliswicka is a good DD, there's no doubt about it, I still feel the Leningrad is the better choice. Just from playing them both and fighting against them, the Leningrad really does seem like the better of the two. Now, for some Tier 7s that I would, guys, just flat out recommend you staying away from and not getting at all. Sad to say, I had high hopes for this ship, but the Indianapolis, this is not a good ship. It's just not. Its guns can't compete. It doesn't have, it has radar going for it, but it's too big. It just doesn't handle as well. Its damage output is low. Its armor's terrible. It's very easy to citadel. I would just stay away from the Indianapolis in general. The Sims is a good boat. I would definitely not put that in the stay away. The Sims is great. But again, Leningrad, I feel, is the most effective. Going out to the other Tier 7s that potentially could be worth a buy, but is the Atlanta. Now, I own an Atlanta. This is a ship that you really have to be very experienced at the game to do well with. If you get caught out in the open versus almost anything, you'll lose that fight, because its hang time on its shells is extremely long, and it can't survive out in the open. You have to use islands, use other people's smoke, etc., etc. So the Atlanta, while it can be a great ship and it's an amazing destroyer killer, you have to be very experienced at the game to buy this one. So I would stay away from the Atlanta also. unless you're very experienced and you really know what you're doing, because that's a very high skill ceiling to that ship. So just in general, to recap Tier 7, my definite buys for Tier 7 are the Scharnhorst and the Belfast, followed probably by the Leningrad. But definitely Scharnhorst, Belfast. Those are my two #1 picks for Tier 7, without a doubt. Very strong ships that can carry games and make tons of money. Lots of credits. So now let's move on to Tier 6. Now at Tier 6, there is a smorgasbord of premiums available. There is a ton of premiums available. There's also quite a few Tier 6s that I do not own personally, and there's even one or two that I've not played, but I know a lot about them. So I'll go ahead and cover Tier 6 in general, even the ones I've not played. So starting off the ones that I don't own, and if I don't own it, that means it's a premium that I would generally pass on. So the Perth, while it is a good ship, it has one massive, huge issue, and that's it's pretty much a British cruiser, even though it says Commonwealth. And one of the big issues with the Perth is its smoke. While it's unique thing, but it's also its downfall. The Perth smoke, whenever you hit it, it doesn't just make a blob like other smokes on every other ship in the game. You can actually keep moving, and throughout the duration of the smoke, it'll just keep letting out puffs for, a minute and a half. If you put the smoke module on there, I think you can get it up for like 2 minutes. But the problem is, when that smoke runs out, your reload for that smoke doesn't start to reload until your smoke runs out. And that's a big problem with the Perth, because you hit your smoke in a regular British cruiser. When your smoke finally ends, you only got about 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds before your smoke's available again. But with the Perth, because it doesn't start reloading until that last puff, you have a full 2 minutes of waiting in between smokes, and that is a huge glaring weakness, and so I would not recommend the Perth. The Duca di Gosta, I'm sorry again about the pronunciation. This is a newer premium that just came out, Italian Tier 6 Ferrari, one of the fastest cruisers in the game. This is one I've not played personally, but from buddies of mine who have them and being in platoons with them, they really like this ship. Apparently it has really good guns. It has torpedoes that have an extremely long range. Its torpedoes have a 12-kilometer range, which is pretty nuts on a Tier 6 cruiser. But other than that, it has really good armor. It's very fast. It's got good concealment. So this is, if you're going to buy a Tier 6 cruiser, this is definitely one of the ones I would recommend, followed by the Molotov, the Russian Tier 6 cruiser. But in general, again, for premiums, I tend to recommend highly battleships, just because they're so strong in the game right now, especially for newer players. And again, that holds very much true at Tier 6. Now, at Tier 6, there's so many premium battleships that in these matches you'll be running into lots of battleships. Not to mention the fact that Tier 6 often gets bumped up into Tier 8 games, or at least Tier 7 games. And so playing cruisers, especially Tier 6 cruisers, is really tough to do. So only get the Tier 6 cruisers if you're experienced at the game, or if you just want one. Hey, they're fun to play. Just be aware of that they're not very mistake friendly. Now for the Tier 6 premiums that I would recommend most, it's a really tough call, but my #1 Tier 6 premium would probably have to go to the Arizona. The Arizona, it only has one flaw, is that it's slow. But other than that, this is a fantastic ship. It makes lots of money. It's got 12 hyper accurate guns. You will citadel with this ship more than any other Tier 6 battleship. And this is my overall #1 pick at Tier 6, without a doubt, is the Arizona. Followed by the Warspite, Dunkirk, Matsu. Really, you know what? There is no bad Tier 6 premium battleship. They're all very unique. They all do something the others can't do. The Arizona, like I said, it's slow, but it has the hyper accurate guns. The Dunkirk is very, very fast, but it has all of its guns on the front. It's got this front turret layout, so you can just keep your bow pointed at the enemy. It also reverses, very nice French joke, goes in reverse real fast. The Warspite has 181 millimeter guns, which is very important, unlike the Baron, which has 380. So the Baron can't overmatch, let's say, a Dunkirk front that has 25 millimeters of armor. The Baron can't overmatch that, whereas the Warspite, because it has 381 instead of 380, it can overmatch the front bows of other same tier battleships, not to mention higher tier cruisers and whatnot. So that's something unique the Warspite can do. Well, I really shouldn't say unique, because the next ship we're about to look at can do that even better. But the thing with the Warspite that makes it unique is its amazing, best in the game turn time. The Warspite can turn in 550 meters. To put that in perspective, let's look at the Gade destroyer at a 690. The Warspite can outturn destroyers. With that makes dodging torpedoes very easy. Avoiding carrier strikes, easy. Just because this thing turns like no other battleship in the game. Now for the next battleship at Tier 6 that also has a unique little feature to it, is actually the Mutsu. The Mutsu is a Tier 6 Nagato. That's pretty much what it is. The Mutsu is a Tier 6 Nagato that has, the armor's not as good as the Nagato's armor, but it still is fine. As long as you get caught broadside, the armor on this holds up just fine. But what makes the Mutsu very unique at Tier 6 is it's the only Tier 6 that has 16-inch guns. That means this thing can overmatch the bows of Tier 6, 7 battleships. They have the highest punching power of all battleship guns at Tier 6. And then another thing that makes the Mutsu really unique is that it's the only Tier 6 battleship that has torpedoes. It's got these little torpedo launchers. It's very unique. Now the angles on them aren't that great, but hey, at least you got them. And in a close range brawl, that can really make the difference. Those little torpedoes. So again, any of the Tier 6 battleships are great choices. Again, Arizona, if you're just going to pick one, that is definitely the way to go, I think, in my opinion. Again, it's nation dependent. If you don't have any, this goes for any tier. If you don't have any American ships, you probably don't want to buy an Arizona then. If you're grinding just British ships, you probably do want to buy a Warspite. Until you get to that point where you have 19-point commanders and you can use the free XP conversion, crew training and whatnot will be a big deal. These are just, again, my opinion on the most effective ships at this tier. These are the ships that are going to win you the most games, make you the most money, and are just generally the most powerful ships. And that's what I'm basing most of this off of now, guys. Now let's move on to Tier 5. Now Tier 5 is chock full of non-credit coefficient premiums that just they don't make a lot of money. Tier 5 is generally the cutoff for me with premiums. I don't really like to play any premiums lower than Tier 5. Their credit coefficients and their money-making potential is just not high enough. And so I generally don't play Tier 5s and lowers to make money, though I do play them just for fun. I do play them for fun sometimes, but they will not be making as good as money as, let's say, a higher tier premium ship. That being said, if you were going to pick up Tier 5 for fun, or maybe just a cost issue, the Kamikazes, great ships. If you can get your hands on a Kamikaze or a Fujin, those are excellent ships. Number one pick for money making though at Tier 5 is going to be the Texas. Best AA Tier 5 hands down. Carriers will give you a very wide berth because you can literally kill their planes before they drop with the Texas. Amazing AA for its tier, and it's a battleship and it's a premium. If I was just going to buy a Tier 5 premium, the Texas is definitely the one I would get. Besides the Texas, I feel the best premium at Tier 5 is going to be the Murmansk. This used to be one of the most overpowered ships in the game, but it did get a significant nerf when they changed the captain skills. But it's still a very strong ship. It's got a 15-kilometer gun range, and it also has a scout plane. So you can hit that scout plane, and then you can start shooting at battleships, 18, 19 kilometers away. You can actually, with your scout plane up, outrange a lot of Tier 5 battleships. Turns well. Its concealment's its AA is nothing to write home about, and its torpedoes are just, middle of the road average for Tier 5. But it's got really good guns, and one of the cool things about the Murmansk is you can actually fire straight at the enemy. So if you just go straight at them, you can still fire 6 guns effective firepower-wise, pointing straight at them. 8-kilometer torpedoes. Again, this is my second pick for Tier 5, but the Texas beats the Murmansk hands down, just because it's durable, it's a battleship, they're stupidly strong in game right now, they make lots of money. So those are my picks for Tier 5. Everything else at Tier 5 are ships you really can't get anymore, or you just plain old wouldn't want. The Grim Yashi, of course, is an amazing ship. Unfortunately, it's not always available for purchase, or you have to win it through competitions or contests or whatnot. The Krispy Kreme, I would flat out not get. It's not a good ship. I would avoid that one. The Otago is a unique ship. It's very long. It has a massive broadside. I mean, look at this thing. It's like a wiener dog, but for ships. It's got lots of torpedoes, but they're very short range, 4.5 kilometers. It's got the 9.2 kilometer gun range, and its concealment is not bad, 6.5. You put a commander with concealment expert. The concealment on there won't be bad, but it's got some issues that it's, as long as a battleship, it's extremely long boat, but it does have single biggest broadside firepower of any destroyer at Tier 5 without a doubt. 7 130 millimeter guns, so this can put out the punishment, but in general, I really wouldn't get it. It just doesn't have the survivability to stay in the battle long enough, generally speaking. But if you're a fan of destroyers, I would get the Otago probably over the Kamikazes. That's just for my personal playstyle. I'd rather be running around shooting stuff than stealth torping, which is what you have to do on the Kamikaze boats. But in general, Tier 5's not my favorite tier for premiums. They generally don't make enough money. And from my point of view, is why play a Tier 5 battle and make 100,000 credits when I can spend the same amount of time in a Tier 8 and make 500,000 credits. So generally, I would avoid them. Now, these lower tiers we're about to go to, Tier 4 and 3, I flat out just would not recommend buying any of the ships there, just unless you just looking for a very cheap premium, because Tier 4 and 3 and whatnot, they do have really cheap premiums, but they generally don't make very good money. They generally have some sort of big flaw to them, and they're just the Tier 4, Tier 3. They're just for me personally, they're not as fun. But again, if you just wanted a lower tier ship, maybe to play with friends, often I'll play with someone who doesn't have higher tier ships, and so then I do fall back and I play my lower tier premium ships to play with them. So if that's the case, for Tier 4, 3, and 2, I'm just going to combine them all together. So for Tier 4, if you can get your hands on the mighty Emperor Nikolai, Imperato Nikolai, this is, I mean, pretty much the undisputed king of Tier 4. Nothing really stands up to this thing. Almost. I actually prefer my Arkansas beta, but that was a reward ship for being a beta tester, and so you don't. It doesn't have a higher credit coefficient or anything, whereas an Imperator Nikolai does. But generally, most people say this is the better ship, but me personally, I prefer the Arkansas, mainly just because I don't have an Imperator. But if you can get your hands on one of those, that's the Seal Clubber's dream right there. One of the strongest ships for any tier in the game. Japanese I'll just quickly go over again. I'm just going to lump these all together. The Izuzushi is a battleship, so if you're going to buy a premium, again, battleship's the way to go. Its armor's not very good. Its guns are not all that great, but it is fast. All the other Tier 4 battleships premiums are very, very slow, and most battleships in Tier 4 in general are slow. But the Izuzushi is fast. It's got decent guns. Its armor's not that great though. But hey, it's a Tier 4 premium battleship, so it's still going to be tanky. You're still going to have heals. The Yubari, I'm not sure if it's always offered or not. Generally, it's a Tier 4 cruiser. I know it has a limited amount of guns. It's only got 4 guns, but I know they are very accurate, and they're extremely fast flight times on them. So you can hit ships very easily at its max range. And I believe it's the only Tier 4 that has defensive fire. To deal with the Tier 4 carriers, this is the ship to do that in. Now, you're not going to be knocking down massive, huge waves of planes, but you will stop them from dropping on you, and they will avoid you just because you're the only ship at Tier 4 that does have that premium. The Iwaki Alpha, again, was an alpha test reward ship. I would love to have one of those. If anybody from Wargaming's watching this, you can go ahead and gift me an Iwaki Alpha. That would be super awesome because I really want one of those ships. The Kotori, Chichibana, I just wouldn't get them. They're not very fun to play. There's nothing particularly special about them. And guys, I know there's going to be some guys out there who love these particular ships that you think I'm trashing you on. I'm not. Just they're not personally for me. I'm sure they're great premiums if you love them, but just for me, they just don't do it. The Albany, I've never played the Smith, so I couldn't tell you anything about that one. I know it's a destroyer. It's a Tier 2 destroyer. I mean, what can I really talk about with it? The Albany, they gave a bunch of us an Albany a while ago for free. I didn't care for that one at all. The Dianas, the Oleg, and the Alaura, that ship's just too famous for me to say anything bad about it, right? So, Alaura, fantastic ship. That's all I'm going to say, because that's just a touchy subject for some people. The Koenig Albert, the Tier 3. This is another really overpowered ship for its tier. It's the Tier 4 Kaiser. It's pretty much this ship, but at Tier 3. If you wanted a Tier 3 battleship, this is the strongest Tier 3 battleship in the game, in my opinion. And it's a premium, so it's going to make the most money at Tier 3. If you're looking for a very cheap battleship, that's an excellent one to get. I can't say anything bad about that one at all. The Emden, it's a little Tier 2 ship. I've actually played it a handful of times with some new people. And it's actually not bad, but again, nothing special, nothing to write home about. British, they only have the Campbelltown. Not impressed with it. Tier 3 destroyer. I've only played it a handful of times. Wasn't very impressed with it, and I believe that's all the lower tier premiums. All right, guys. Well, that's all the premiums in the game. I went over by tier and whatnot. Now let's just do a general recap. If you have the money to buy a Missouri from a pure credit making standpoint, that's the way to go. Let's say you wanted to buy a tier 8 premium. Tirpitz, Kutuzov, definitely my #1 picks for tier 8. In premiums in general, Kutuzov or Tirpitz will suit you well and make you lots of money without having to spend $100 on a premium ship. Now, all of these premiums here, I am going to be making actual specific reviews for the ships themselves in the coming weeks and whatnot. I'll be covering all of them. Every premium ship that I own and some that I don't own, I'll be doing reviews, guides, specifically how to play them, their strengths, weaknesses specifically with each ship, and I'll be showing you gameplay footage of each one. Alright guys, that'll about wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. Again, this is Ironhide X. If you enjoyed this video or any of my other videos, please subscribe to my channel. You'll see the link down below the video. And there also should be one popping up right about now on the screen. Just click there and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.